guys, Michelle Burritt here, and I got my table topper to this point. All my bunnies are put together, and then so it was like a great big four patch, and then I just put them together. So now to put the borders on, this is what you want to do with your border, even with a great big quilt, with anything. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure in 3 places. You want to measure along the bottom, in the center, and on the top, and that is what those 2 borders are going to be cut to, because you don't want to just flop a border on, pin it, get to where you're at the end and cut that off. Please do not do that. You will have waves like nobody's business. That's why people have wavy borders, because they don't measure it, they just put the fabric on there and they cut it. That's not the right way. Because fabric is pliable. I mean, you know, you can stretch it, you can, if it's on a bias, you know. And this isn't even cut on a bias and it still stretches. So you always have to measure. Then it will make your quilts lay flat. Especially this, if you want to use it for a table runner or maybe a wall hanging or something, you really want it flat. So anyway, what you do is you measure. So I'm going to measure the bottom. My bottom is 32 1/2. So 32.5. Then my center is going to be, let's see, I did measure it here and I had to get my calculations. There's an app that you can get. It's a quilting calculator. So like this one right here, it's 32 3/8. So I'm an eighth of an inch away from my 1/2 inch. So 32 3/8, so I looked it up on my quilting calculator, would be 32.375. And then the top of my quilt, this is a quilt, is 32 5/8. So that equals 32.625. Now what you do with those 3 measurements is we're going to add those up. So 32.625 plus 32.375 plus 32.5. Okay, that I come up with 97.5. I'm going to divide that by 3 because I took 3 measurements. Divided by 3. Okay, so it comes out to 32.5. So I am going to cut 2 borders 32.5 inches long. That is what I'm going to make work on this quilt. So let's do 32.5 inches. And I ironed my fabric. Let me get a ruler. I did not get that, of course. I'm going to cut off the selvage because we don't want selvage in our quilt anywhere. So I'm just measuring along the border, make sure it's straight, and get rid of that. So 32.5. This mat comes up to 33, so I can go to 32.5, and I'm going to make sure it follows one of these lines to keep it straight. So 30, and I can do 2 at a time. I don't have to do 1 at a time. I can do both. I know, let me cut off the selvage on this one too. I know they're both going to be the same. You want your borders the same. You don't want one to be 32 1/2 and the other one to be 32 3/4 or something. Because sometimes, you know, on a bigger quilt, they can get off like that and it's not that big of a deal because you have, if you're working with 90 inches and you're off 3/4 of an inch, that's really not that bad. Okay, so now I have them on there straight. 32 1/2 inches, correct? 32 1/2. Let me recheck my math, make sure. And I just move that. So I am going to cut these at 32 1/2 inches. So now what I'm going to do with my 32 1/2 inch borders Remember, this side's 32.5, but the other side is 32 5/8. So it'll be a little over. So I'm going to have to pull that border to make it fit. Okay, so now I use my clips. You can use pins. Now what I do first is I come over to this side and I make sure it's squared right up on the end, right where I want it, and I clip that. Then I'm coming over to this side and I'm putting this right on that end where I want it, and I'm going to clip that. Now I know my ends are it's going to go to the end. You either have to pull it a little bit or not. Make it work. Then I'm going to clip right in the center. Now I look at it, I have two sections. I'm going to clip in the center of each of those sections because I'm getting ready to go over to my sewing machine. There you go. And that's about a good space right there. You can clip more or pin more if you want, but you don't have to. So now I will come over to this side, and I can see, yeah, it's a little bit more. My quilt is a little bigger than my border. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to clip on this side right where it's even. And I'm going to clip on this side because I want it to come all the way to that end. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this out a little bit and find the exact center where it wants to be. I'm not just pulling right from the center to find where the center is. So you can see it's a little bit bigger on the bottom. I'm pulling from the sides because now it's naturally going to lay where it wants to lay. And I'm taking that 1/8 of an inch and I'm spreading it over the entire width. So I go like that, and then I just kind of try to hold it down a bit with my fingers. I walk into the center. That's my center. And then I am going to clip that. And then same thing. I have a little bit of easement I need to do. So now, on this section, I'll pull it a little bit tight and kind of walk in about the center right there. I know I want to clip it right there. Now I'm going to come over here and do the same thing right here. Pull it just a little bit. Clip it right there. Now I'm ready to go to my machine. And remember, we let our feed dogs help us. Since the quilt top itself is a little bit larger than my border, I'm going to feed it through my machine like this so that the feed dogs can help bring in and ease in a little bit of that slack. And I'm going to make sure that this section goes from this section right here. I won't, if there's too much slack, I won't move my pin, and because you'll end up with a pucker or something, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So let's go to the machine and get this sewn. And I have a 2.0 stitch length on this because I like it. Okay, so I'll just do a back stitch, and then now I'll pull it just a little bit to help those feed dogs pull in that bottom. I just got off a little bit right there too, but that's okay. Now I want to make sure the fabric is staying lined up where it's supposed to. And we don't want to have any tucks underneath this whole project. We have open seams so we can avoid bulk. So I'm taking care to make sure none of my seams get tucked under. Now I'm getting to the end, and everything should be laying flat because The machine has done most of the work for me. All I had to do is just pull it tight just a little bit to help it. When I get to the end here, I'll do a little back stitch. And then, see, here's the end. Let me see if, yeah. See, it comes right down to that end. And then here's the other side. And I started right there on that end. So I'll go and iron that. But let me do the other side first. And this side was the same. But I still make sure that I clip it really good and keep my edges all squared up. And that I don't let my seams roll on the bottom. Looks good. And there's no easing or anything I have to do because, of course, it's the same size. Okay, and then the bottom of this one is pretty even. And this one is pretty even also. Now I'm going to iron this, and I'm going to put the second borders on. I'll put the borders on the other sides, and I will show you that in another video.